tomorrow we're releasing a music video that we filmed together with Jamie DeWolf, pretty renowned local filmmaker who's done other kind of revolutionary films about India. And the music video is about the Indian farmer protests. So it's the largest protest in human history. And it started in 2020, and it has kind of been continuing through the whole coronavirus until the present day. And, it's still ongoing with farmers in between Punjab and Delhi, right? So I think our goal today was to just kind of dive in, talk a little bit about the issue and how it kind of fits into our lives. By my side here, I've got my partner, Lullaby, who's going to be asking us some questions to get us started off. And anybody.
So how did you individually kind of hear about the protest and get inspired to make art about it?
Yeah, so I was just home and I had an uncle in town, and it was through a family discussion around what was happening in India. And I couldn't understand, right? Because on one hand, they were saying, hey, wow, there's this giant protest going on. But at the same time, my family, who is, Hindu, kind of middle-class mainstream Hindu in India, they were against the protests. And I was, surprised, and I wanted to learn more about the issues. So.
On that, with all this social media, I feel like there's some pretty strong opposing opinions out there. I'm wondering if either of y'all have like a source you recommend or a place to go that you consider to be pretty reliable.
Yeah, so I'll start off is that I liked Vox's coverage. Vox always does kind of explain, they go into the history of stuff. If you're interested in something a little bit more in depth, there's an Indian YouTuber named Mohak Mangal. That's Mohak space Mangal. All of his videos are in Hindi, but he has English translations underneath them, and he goes really, really into depth in explaining issues related to India. You have any recommendations, Anish?
I know there's a few like Instagram people that I follow that basically, I think there's like the Sikh coalition, the Sikh coalition. There's also there's this influencer I follow. Her name is Sandy Gill. She's like a designer and stuff. She's Punjabi and she like speaks about the issues a lot. I'd say the Sikh coalition is like a good kind of starting point. SIKHCOALITION.
And I wanted to call out a couple more specific Instagram pages. So check out at Sikh Expo, that's SIKHEXPO, and at brown.journals. They both have a lot of coverage around issues related to South Asians.
Why do you think that supporters of the BJP are opposing the farmers' protest?
So that's a good question. So first of all, we got to clarify. I don't know if everybody in our audience knows what the BJP is. But yeah. If I had to explain, right, is India is a really big country with a lot of different people, right? But one sort of thread that runs through a lot of the population is this idea of a Hindu national state. So the BJP is kind of the party that most closely represents that idea of like a unified Hindu state. And you might consider them like the Republicans of India. And they're in charge now of India. So a lot of the policy, and the current leader, Modi, is extremely popular. So I would say that a lot of people, especially in my family, consider themselves to be BJP supporters. On one hand, there's such a strong central figure in Modi that anything that his administration proposes that goes under his name, people are going to be really defensive around.
Yep.
And on the other hand, I also kind of see, with the BJP, like there's also a narrative in the media that the farmer protests, that they're not actually genuine, that they're politically motivated, that they're actually supported by rich farmers in Punjab and mostly supported by Indians like us who are abroad. So I think a lot of their perspective is also kind of a part of this media narrative that it's not really a legitimate protest.
I've been seeing some different hashtags going around, and some of them are Indian farmer protests. Some of them are specifically Punjab farmer protests. And so, you know, what's kind of the driver of certain regions being impacted more than others? If you could just kind of break that down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a little bit of history around this issue specifically, and so what's been going on is that farmers have been a really important part of India ever since India got its independence, right? But specific regions, including Punjab, you know, have felt really overlooked as part of the creation of the new state in terms of the way that they were represented, and even culminating in a lot of Hindu violence against Sikhs, including a massacre in Delhi, right? So there's a lot of history and reasons why Punjab feels like they haven't been represented or heard. So there's already sort of that underlying issue with farmers in Punjab. But then the other big reason that only farmers in Punjab and Haryana are affected is because they produce the only two crops that are capable of getting a government subsidized price. So even though the government promised in the early 2000s that they would subsidize 11 to 13 crops, due to corruption and lack of awareness, most of those crops never actually got the subsidized price. Instead, only wheat and rice got these subsidies. And wheat and rice are primarily produced in Punjab and Haryana. So to the outside world, it's the Indian farmer protests. To a lot of people in India, it's the Punjab and Haryana farmer protests.
And for people who don't know the issue, what do you mean by subsidized price?
Yeah, that's a great question. So subsidized price, meaning, let's say it costs me 15 cents to produce a cucumber. Now, in order for my business to be profitable, I always need to make 20 more cents. So I always have to sell it at 35 cents. And then the subsidized price basically says that if the market's value of the vegetable dips below 35 cents, the government will pay the difference to make sure that you get 35 cents for each piece of grocery that you're selling. And it was supposed to be for 11 to 13 crops as part of a historical promise. But again, only wheat and rice have been covered, and those are mostly produced in Punjab and Haryana.
Got it. No, that's a good little explanation, I feel like, for just the high level. Yeah. So to kind of take a step back, right? Like the government's generally supposed to subsidize that difference of if the price goes below the market, then the government will say, we'll pay that so that the farmers are profitable. But now, so do you want to explain kind of the second piece of this of why there's a whole protest now?
Yeah. So here's what's happened is in 2020, they passed 3 farm bills. So these 3 farm bills, what they do is they allow corporations for the first time to buy produce from farmers at any price, meaning that corporations can come in, offer temporarily better prices to farmers and say, okay, well, instead of 35 cents, this year we'll give you 45 cents. And then lock them into multiple year contracts where then they're able to control the price for the rest of the contract. And now they're able to do these contracts through mobile phones, which a lot of rural farmers in India are completely new to. So they're not able to review the terms of these multiple year contracts. And those are the first 2 bills. And then the third bill is actually, in my opinion, the most nefarious one. And what it does is it allows corporations who both buy produce and own like refrigerator, cold storage facilities to take food that they buy and use their own cold storage facilities to store them. Meaning that before they wouldn't have been allowed to take the vegetables that they buy and store them in their own facilities. But now that they can do that, they can lock farmers into multiple year contracts, buy up produce, hoard it essentially in these refrigerators, raise the price, sell it at a higher markup price, and then take control of the entire price for that individual crop. So that's the situation that farmers see ahead of themselves developing over the next 5 to 7 years, is corporations effectively making the remainder of the 2 crops no longer subsidized by the government. And this is kind of the exact same pattern that happened in America during the 70s. There were other causes around that, but it's happened in a lot of other states that go through industrialization. Is small farmers get crowded out of their ability to own land because of, you know, essentially expanded corporate control.
Got it. So I guess for people basically who don't understand or who kind of didn't have the context before, what's essentially happening is the corporations are taking control of the industry. They're buying up crops, they're reselling them at a higher price, and they're basically cutting the farmer out as the middleman, which is essentially like they buy cheap and they sell high, and the farmer basically doesn't. And then with that, the contract is the farmer doesn't really know what terms they're getting, so they could say, we'll buy the cucumber for 45 cents. The government would buy it for 35. We buy it for 45, but we have something in there in the contract that says we could sell it for whatever we want, and we get it for 25 in the next 2 to 5 years. So it's like
exactly
they don't know what they're getting basically, and it's really bad. What representation in the government is there for people who grow crops? Are the farmers being represented? And it sounds like they're not. And as a result of that, like, that's essentially why there's a protest of like taxation without representation.
So you both touched on, you know, the fact that this could be something that has, you know, many years of impact, and also, you know, the government involvement. And so I'm wondering, you know, what exactly the scale of this protest is, and if there's been any impact on government legislation or any other types of changes.
Right. You have Rihanna who's posting about it. Right. You have bigger celebrities who are aware of it. And as a result, it's getting more momentum and more mobility. And I think it's becoming a more, like, it's coming to the forefront of people's like view in terms of what's important.
Yeah. So when we talk about the Indian farmer protests and the scale of it, we're talking about literal millions of farmers. So we're talking about farmers from Punjab and Haryana, to the extent where Punjab, right, is another state in northern India. It's connected to another state in northern India by a road, and that road is completely filled with farmers camping out and protesting. And it's been that way for almost a full year now. What they really want is for these farmer bills to be repealed. And progress towards that, there doesn't seem to be any. There seems to be a lot more buckling down on, we're going to keep the farm bills the way that they are. But what Modi did do was he passed an executive action, and he gave quite a large lump sum of money to farmers in India. But because there are so many farmers, it totaled to a very, very small amount per farmer. They've been kind of trying to appease the farmers without really dealing with the source of the problems. That because of COVID, the issue is only kind of getting worse, right? So you can imagine they've been camping out there and protesting the whole time through COVID. And like, basically the response has been, oh, first, we're really scared for the farmers' health. But luckily, there weren't that many outbreaks that were directly related to the farmer protests. What people have been saying about COVID now is that the farmers are going to hurt India's economy. So a lot of the mainstream press coverage is actually, you know, saying to the farmers, oh, you don't care about our country. Because instead of saying that, oh, yeah, you guys have been protesting for over a year on the streets during COVID, they're saying that you're preventing India's recovery from COVID by not going back to farming.
You know, I know y'all released the song a bit ago, but I'd love to hear about the decision to make a video to go with that and the creative process for both of you, what that was like.
Yeah, so I decided to make the song, like I said, to kind of draw attention to it in a positive way. It's such a complicated issue. And how are you supposed to get invested in it as a Western audience? So I really wanted to appeal to them and, you know, even appeal to youth in Punjab and, you know, show them there are people who care all around the world. So that was the idea, really, is behind kind of pushing forward the movement. And I had a good friend, Jamie DeWolf, who he has made a bunch of revolutionary videos, you know, some stuff about protests in Kashmir. And so I got interested in what he was making, and he was really, you know, interested in this movement as well. So he agreed to shoot the video, And then me, Anish, and his sister, we made the song together, and then we actually ended up filming the music video at a protest on the Golden Gate Bridge. So we were leading a protest at the Golden Gate Bridge, but the way that we got to lead it was really funny because our cameraman was following behind, you know, the rest of the parade down the Golden Gate Bridge, and he was slowing us down. So we ended up in the very back of the parade.
Yeah.
But at the end of the Golden Gate Bridge, they had to turn around. So on the way back, we were in the front the whole way, and so we got some nice footage of us leading the parade. And that's all going to be dropping tomorrow at noon on YouTube. And we have a few different blogs that are covering it. So we have at Word is Bond, at Glass Factory, that's Glass E Factory, and Rock the Pigeon in Oakland.
You actually reached out at a really good time because I wanted to, you know, write something about it or share something about it. So I think the song was kind of a good way to, and the beat was great too. Your brother made that beat, didn't he?
Yeah, my little brother made that beat. He's a 17-year-old whiz kid producer. So I think he was 16 when he made that, and it's inspired by Bhangra. So Bhangra, if you don't know, is a Punjabi style of music. It goes din 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 din, and he used kind of some of those rhythms in the beat for the hip hop song.
Yeah, man. No, I think I think the song came together really well. I feel like just the whole journey of filming the video was very special because I think on the one hand, so we got to go to a farmers protest in the Bay on a Saturday, and that was very interesting to see. Like you mentioned, we were on the Golden Gate Bridge, and we were basically performing the song, and there was like flags, people with flags behind us, and we timed it so that there were like, you know, people in the background, and it was really a full on protest, and we were like stopping and starting to kind of get the timings right, just so that we see everybody while we were doing it. And there were cars like honking their horns, and you know, it was like we were trying to do something positive with this, right? So that was like very special. And I think the other side of this too was you know, we got to go to the temple on Sunday. It's called the Gurudwara. It's like the Sikh temple, and you know, some people like stopped us. They're like, "What are you guys doing?" And we were like, I think you mentioned the farmers protest, and they were like, "Oh yeah, go ahead and film." So it was that was like a cool sort of you know, opportunity to be able to just, you know, do something there at the temple. It was and the crazy part about it too was I feel like we did about like 100 takes of the song just because we wanted to get the right take, and it goes to show you just how, like, if you want to make something good, it, you know, it takes a lot of time. We like blocked out 2 full days to shoot this, and to be honest, I didn't really know what we were doing in terms of like, we got to the locations, and we were kind of like, we'll kind of scout it out, we'll see what we're gonna do, and we kind of went with it, and I think that was definitely the right way to do it in terms of just reading the crowd, feeling the pulse, feeling the energy of the music. A lot of people were like, "Yo, whenever you release it, you know, definitely let us know." Definitely, and that was cool to be able to be a part of something like that, because I know how like important this is.
Second day was a really funny story because we showed up at the largest Gurudwara in North America, huge domes. Oh. We got like aerial drone shots and all this stuff.
And I'm wondering kind of what you're hoping. I mean, I'm sure there's more than one, but if there's like one big takeaway or action that you wanted people to kind of pull from this, if it's, you know, sharing the song, if it's taking 5 minutes to read about something, kind of what are you hoping for?
I'm hoping that people will share the song, you know, that people who hear the song, they listen to it, they learn about the issue, they share the song, they inform another person, and hopefully, you know, the natural cycle of music promotion, which is something that I understand, can also be the path of promoting this issue.
That's great. That's great. I would agree with that, and I'll add. I'll say the takeaway for me is, I think to sit, like, I want people to see this and actually like sit down and reflect about it, think about it, talk about it, like actually really understand.
So much of our produce, right, our basic goods like the cottons, the rice that we consume in America are imported from India and grown by these farmers, right? And in such a huge population, if you think about millions of people in America it would probably be big, you know, seem like a bigger deal than if they were halfway around the world.
Shout out to Ellen for being a great moderator. We appreciate you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you both for your time, and educating people is a process. So thank you for making this discussion around that, sharing your art with us. Much appreciation to you both.
Appreciate you. Well, Cook, aka Raja. Thanks for putting this whole project together, man. I'm excited for people to see the video. I haven't even seen the video, so I'm super excited for that as well. I can't wait, you know, to share the message, the blog coverage, the discussions, all the positive stuff that'll come from this. So for people who haven't checked them out, you know, we got the music video dropping tomorrow, and you know, definitely read up on the issues and start having good discussions about it. I think that's the first step to anything, really. So
that's right, y'all. So follow at A'niche Music, follow at Raja Breaker. Grow Food, Indian Farmers Protest Anthem is dropping tomorrow at noon, September 5th, 2021. Thank you guys so much again, and I think we're out. Peace, A'niche.
Peace, guys.